My final bit on sponsorships is on what do you offer sponsors? Like, what do you give them? You know, what are you giving a sponsor? What are you telling a sponsor that gets a sponsor excited? In 12 years of production of content in Australia and obviously productions before that, and across all of the sponsorships that we've always received, we have always had an incredible relationship with our sponsors. I think we are now in our 14th project, which has put sponsors into place. You know, that is very reliant on sponsorships, and you know, sponsors have been given lots of things, and they initially, what happens is when a sponsor comes on board, it's very much a take proposition. So you're always sort of, you know, you're always receiving. The sponsor tends to be the one giving you things. But there's a point in the production process where you have not only brought your sponsor on board, your sponsors with you, things are working, they're getting photography, they're meeting your talent, they're meeting the other sponsors. It becomes, the relationship turns, and you become the giver. You start giving, and eventually it becomes a very valuable relationship for that sponsor. Now, what do you give a sponsor? Like, what do you give people so that they get excited about getting involved with you? What I try to do is I try to have our team offer at the outset pari passu to what it is that they're putting in. So if they're putting in a very small amount of cash, then they're getting only exposure. They're only getting exposure on our publicity material. So they're only getting exposure, you know, perhaps in the novel of the film. They're only getting exposure on the flyers or the posters. They're only getting exposure on the website, you know, with click-throughs to their website. They're only getting that kind of exposure. So it's very below the line type of exposure. You know, if you're putting advertisements out, you're getting people to know about you. You know, they're getting advertising everywhere. You know, if you're wearing a shirt, you're going to be placing their advertising on your shirt. If you're on set, the advertising's on the vehicles. You know, you're basically giving them coverage. The thing is that some sponsors, and I've discovered this, and this is a really, you know, if you can differentiate it by price, you'll have sponsors that will say, okay, look, we're prepared to give you X amount of money to get all of this little, you know, all our logos plastered everywhere. But what we really want is we want exposure in the film. We want to be seen in the movie. We want the talent to actually drive our vehicles. We want the talent to drink our cola. We want talent to wear our clothing or our Ray-Ban specs as in Top Gun, or, you know, we want people to use what it is that we are selling, what we have, what makes us unique. So what we try to do is we say to them, you know, by virtue of the cost involved, for every scene, there's a fee. So if they're in one scene, that's a fee. Now, if they're in the second scene, that becomes a little bit more obvious to the viewer that this is an advertisement. If it's an advertisement, then you almost need to increase the price quite substantially. I've had sponsors that have said to me, we want to be in 3 or 4 scenes. Or we're the sponsor that you come back to again and again in this coffee shop. Sponsors that have super understanding, you know, sponsors that really love where you're going with this, and they can see the opportunities. You know, they're a lot of it turns into how are you going to monetize these films, because they're suddenly realizing this isn't just theatrical, this isn't just television, this isn't just DVD home, you know, sell through DVD. This is the internet. You know, this is the fact is that some of our films have now, you know, been screened and they have been monetized using internet channels. So it's become a really good opportunity for sponsors to go, hold on a minute, you know, instead of us finding a producer on YouTube to produce something for us, here's a company that's come to us. They're about to produce something that potentially could go viral or not, you know, or just lunchtime cereal. People are watching programming all the time. So I'm on my way to a film set in the next half hour or so. A lot to do, but again, still working through in my mind how to help other filmmakers and other creators of content and product, on a regular basis, because we partner up with a lot of writers and filmmakers and distributors and broadcasters and content creators around the world. And a lot of these companies, we have the 3-4 page document, which they understand this is the new project that we're developing, this is where we're going, this is the distribution, this is what we're going to be doing with it. These are the kinds of sponsors, because we outline the kinds of sponsors that we are looking for. And then they'll look at a blog like this and say to me, what am I offering my sponsors? I've got 5, 6, 7 really great sponsor options here. People that I've actually just met, or I've come across an entertainment event which has super sponsorships already attached, and in fact here's their event and there's their 12 sponsors, and I can contact those 12 sponsors. So I go, offer them, incidental marketing and advertising and coverage, which is basically what we've just discussed, the flyers, the posters. But then also offer them the opportunity of being in the film. Now, sometimes we also have a thing called blogging. We might blog around the movie. So in other words, they're not in the film, but they're in the incidental advertising and running footage that we shoot that is really a blog related to the film. So they might be in that. And when companies are involved in that, they get very excited too, because it gives them another opportunity, another superb opportunity at participating in the project. I really do make it not easy to be in the film, because I think being in the film ultimately is, that is the big prize. That is the crown jewel. You really want the very best, because once you've got, I'll give you an example. You're watching a movie, and you're advertising a well-known sports car. Most viewers won't think that's an advertisement. They arrive and they're drinking a brand of coffee. Most viewers won't really notice that. But if you keep showing it, and it comes up 2, 3, 4 times, and by the way, people are becoming more and more aware of product placement, but and today, the beauty of interactive video now is that, you're watching a film, and, if the sponsor really wants it, you can have a click-through that allows the viewer to, oh, I love what she's wearing, click through to where she can find it and buy it, the pricing, and straight to a shopping cart. We do that with our books, which are, becoming more and more interactive with product. And that's becoming, especially our ebooks, that's becoming an extraordinary way of enticing sponsors, getting sponsors excited about how to get more coverage in a much more interesting way. Clothing on a rack, yeah, sure, great. But clothing worn by talent, by an actress. We just had this very good-looking Indian girl wear a piece of clothing which you can interact through to. So you see the clothing, you interact on the screen, boom, you're somewhere. Straight away you're able to buy that dress. The sponsor loves that idea, and even though it hasn't taken off yet in a really big way, give it time. I think we're on the forefront of that technology, and that's going to become a really big thing very, very soon. So, what are you offering your sponsors as a final thing? You're obviously giving them the kind of coverage in the film that is appropriate to the price. How do you gauge price? How do you work out the price? Well, I go by rate cards. So I look at rate cards and I go, well, that rate card is for 30 seconds, you're getting X amount of, it's costing you X amount. But when you're advertising, you got to remember, people go, oh, but I paid $10,000 for 30 seconds and it's my advertisement. And I always say that it's only the last 3 to 4 seconds that's your logo. Your logo is only the last 3 or 4 seconds. And you might have held their attention with a story about some animal or a deer that appears in traffic, and and the gentleman gets out the car, asks the little kid to go home, and it only becomes a well-known beer name later. Doesn't happen straight away. And they understand that, and they go, well, in truth, they've paid $10,000 for 4 seconds. So what we do is we tend to sort of work out by the numbers of people that will potentially see the film, the numbers of people that have seen our other films in the past. In terms of Facebook figures, Facebook's fantastic because Facebook gives you a very specific number of people that are watching a movie, that are watching a site, that are you can advertise to somebody, and you've got, you're going to target 1.2 million people. Okay, all your advertising will target 1.2 million people. When you place an advertisement, which will allow people to click through from the advertisement to the website that's got the trailer, and that will showcase that advertising, your sponsor's advertising. We're talking 3 to 4 seconds of an advertisement, which can serve that advertiser very, very well. Sponsors are happy to pay anywhere up to $10,000 if the cost of the advertising that they were going to be paying to advertise their product in their own state is about $10,000 for 30 seconds. So X amount of guaranteed eyes on screen, GEOs, guaranteed eyes on screen, is really what you are communicating. Now, there's a point where you as the filmmaker are going to say, you know what, I'm not going to continue pursuing sponsorships because sponsorships they take up time, and I'm a filmmaker. I shouldn't be, putting my time into finding sponsorships. And this is, at that point, you are now instructing a sales team, one person to the next. You're replicating, you're creating a sales team that is able to continually go out and communicate with new potential sponsors, whether by means of networking events or by call communications, or weighing on expressions of interest to come through from advertising. So more about this a little later, but I think that's kind of useful. So thanks for watching.